questionnaire. Now, there are certain principles that you need to follow when conducting, or rather writing, your questionnaire. Because the questionnaire is essentially the manifestation or the direct control of your instrument. This will be the initial triggering point on how your data will be proven authentic. Why? Because in the questionnaire, you're already testing the quality of your data. Like for example, in journalists, usually they have the most problematic types of questions. Most probably not appearing in a form of questionnaire, but rather in forms of interview and observations. Like, for example, we have instances that journalists often ask victims of a fire, ano pong pakiramdam ng nasunugan kayo ng bahay, tsaka nawalan kayo ng asawa at anak? Mga ganyan. So, ano pong pakiramdam na namatay po sa harapan ninyo yung asawa ninyo, nasusunog ang buhay, tapos natututong, tapos tinititigan nyo lang siya. Ano pong pakiramdam? What's the problem with that? What's the problem with that? It lacks sensitivity. That's exactly the point. I actually already had a student that was planning to conduct a study on post-traumatic stress disorder. You already know what PTSD means? PTSD means, most probably, if you had a life-threatening situation, it can cause a lot of forms of trauma. But, in that respect, this trauma may have manifested itself into some form of subconscious actions done by the victim himself. Now, the student researcher planned to make a study same level, senior high school then. He planned to make a similar study discussing the PTSD. And the primary question that his questionnaire gave a red flag to the whole of the research conduct was this. What was your near-death experience? Could you please elaborate more on your near-death experience? What's the problem with that? Too personal. And of course, we have the risk of triggering the person. This is true for most qualitative researchers. But I think research ninyo, it actually tackles more on drug rehabilitation, right? So therefore, we need to acquire a sense of sensitivity towards the content and how your respondents respond to the certain principle you want to partake in the research. We need to be aware of that. And we have a lot of principles to follow in the questionnaire. First things first, let's determine the types. First thing, there are three rather. There are three types of questionnaires that we all need to be oriented to. First one is the researcher-made questionnaires. Most probably, we're not going to be able to do this. Why? Because researcher-made questionnaires are made essentially by who? The researchers themselves. So basically, when a researcher makes their own authentic questionnaire, they still need to undergo validation. Essentially, their questionnaire or their instrument itself needs to be validated first before it is conducted outside, or rather it is taken into such practice in the academy. Now, how would the researcher-made questionnaires be validated? Through what forms? Through what forms? It can be through a form of a certification by a certain office with integrity. Also, it can be peer-reviewed. Again, the word is the research instrument can be peer-reviewed by close or most authentic and most reliable experts that you have with the study. Now, with this part, in terms of the validation, a peer review only happens when you've already done the questionnaire. Once you accomplish the questionnaire, you submit it to a certain professor or a certain university or a certain dean or a certain head of doctors or any type of professional that may seem fit or has the professional integrity to speak about the case that you are trying to research on. Now, with the peer review, what they're going to do is that they're going to literally proofread the material. What questions may be off, what questions can be improved, what questions could be elaborated further. Yun yung pinaka-idea. So, with that being said, researcher-made questions are one of the hardest types of questionnaires that could ever be done by researchers. Because most probably, in researcher-made questionnaires, you first need to become experts yourselves. Either that, or you have a lot of necessary readings for you to be influenced enough to make a reliable and practical questionnaire. So, after the researcher-made questionnaire, we go to the modified questionnaires. Actually, the easiest thing or the easiest way I could define the modified questionnaire is by comparing it directly to the adopted questionnaire. Because essentially, we only need to change one letter for adopted for you to determine the difference between adopted and modified. And what is that word? You can adopt, but you can also what? You can also adapt. So there's a major difference. In adapting a certain questionnaire, what do? When you adapt a certain questionnaire, you what? You compare, you contrast, you contextualize the instrument. Like for example, let's say that your questionnaire or the questionnaire you saw from a certain research paper may be applicable to your setting. However, this questionnaire is only limited to medical students, only limited to enthusiasts of medicine. So, what you do is you modify that in accordance to your respondents, in accordance to the context of the community you're currently thriving on. So, that being said, adapting is actually contextualizing your research instrument. You contextualize it based on the rate of appropriateness it has for the environment. And with that being said, we go to adopt. When you adopt, what does that mean? When you adopt, you what? What do you do when you adopt? You borrow. You borrow. You provide. Okay, you got the second word. There we go. You provide a direct citation of the instrument you took. You provide a direct citation of the questionnaire you plan to adopt. Like for example, the rubric. You remember the rubric I gave you when we were conducting the research type, when we are conducting the title defense? That was adopted from Ohio State University. I did not make any alterations to that. Rather, it's the standard that is usually done by most schools, because in Ohio State University, they actually use this rubric to assess major forms of thesis defenses, starting from the title defense to the colloquium until the final defense, especially for IMRAE structures. So, that being said, when we adopt, we provide a direct citation. Questions before we continue on? Questions before we continue on? Questions? None? If none, then let us form a colloquium on how you will develop your research instruments. So with that being said,